All right, let's talk that football game. We were sitting at walk-ons watching it, and I think it took us by surprise when Arkansas went up 3-0 and then 6-0. And remember, the spread was 17.5.
Yeah.
And we talked to a lot of people that day that were like, yeah, they're going to cover. They're going to cover. And that's not what happened at all. Jayden Daniels got off to a slow start. He had a pick in, the first quarter?
Yeah.
Completions were off. It wasn't looking good. Now, I do want to say Jayden Daniels is SEC Player of the Week because even though he got off to a slow start, he was able to make those adjustments and fix it, figure out what he needed to do to get back into a rhythm and then finish it. He went 20 for 29, 320 yards, 4 touchdowns, and that 1 pick. But even Brian Kelly said today, to be able to make the adjustments in real time, it didn't take a whole game and then a week of practice to be like, this is where I could have been better. This is what I should have done. He did it in real time during the game. He was able to turn things around, which I think speaks to Jayden Daniels as a quarterback and the maturity that he's grown from last season, even to 4 games in this season, because that's not what you saw against Florida State.
Right.
Thoughts on the offense this past game?
Yeah, I was expecting our offense to come out firing a lot stronger, a lot smoother off the rip. You said you were surprised to see us go down 3-0 and then 6-0. To me, the more surprising thing, I didn't think that was crazy. Arkansas is a team that is good offensively. KJ Jefferson's a good quarterback. They have athletes on that team. I was more so surprised to see as the clock was ticking down in the second quarter, it was 14-3. That was, for me, at that point, after not making an adjustment and not seeing the change in the game, I was like, ooh, this is not great.
Yeah.
Obviously, we got it together, and I didn't think we were going to cover the spread, to be honest with you.
No, we said that on Friday. We straight up said 17.5 is a lot. They're going to put up a fight, and they did. This is a rivalry game.
Yeah.
But yes, I think the first half, you were dwindling down, and again, Coach Kelly talked about that. You're about to go into the half 14-3. With 48 seconds left, they score. They have halftime. They come back. They score. So it speaks to the team's perseverance and the resiliency. Those are the words he used today. That you didn't see that in week 1. So this team is coming along in a sense of learning how to fight. And this was the first win they've gotten where they had to make a comeback. They were down and they had to fight back to secure a win. You didn't see that against Grambling. You didn't see that against Mississippi State because they never felt the deficit. They never went down early in the game. But yes, slightly concerning as to why we were even in the situation of it being 14-3 with 48 seconds left in the half. That is what it is. I don't think it's detrimental to the team. In fact, I think it showed a different side of the team that we kind of were looking to see. Because it's all nice to have the team go up and kick the shit out of an opponent, but that's not always going to be the case. And especially in a rivalry game, you're going to have other teams like Arkansas fought. We knew they weren't going to lay it down. Even before the game, there were some tensions. I know there were guys on the sidelines for LSU mouthing the words to set it off towards Arkansas's sideline. So it's the fun rivalry stuff, but you couldn't have expected Arkansas just to come in and they're better than us, we're going to let it go. You saw a side to LSU that you want to see. It kind of makes you feel good that, hey, they are capable of fighting back when we're down or when things aren't pretty to begin with. We still have hope that things can turn around. I will say Malik Nabers continued on with what he's been doing. And Brian Thomas, 2 touchdowns, kind of started to get things going for himself. We haven't seen too much of him throughout the first 3 weeks. You saw him here and there, but nowhere near what we've seen from Malik Nabers, and that's because the matchups that Nabers is getting, and I know this is straight from Brian Kelly's mouth, are favorable matchups. So, of course, he's going to get the ball more. You're going to see more yards from him, more receptions. But Brian Thomas, he had 133 yards on 5 receptions. So, long, deep balls, nice. 2 touchdowns from him, 2 from Malik, and even Logan Diggs. Now, remember when we previewed this, we talked about Arkansas having one of the best rush defenses in the SEC, or the best in the SEC, I think 5th best in the country. that has since changed, but you've got Logan Diggs on 14 carries locking in 97 yards. No touchdown, but he's averaging 6.9 yards per carry.
Yeah.
Facing one of the best rush defenses. This opens up the offense. So now, yes, Jayden is getting comfortable. He's able to throw down the field. He's hesitating less. You're seeing the connection with not only Malik Nabers now, but Brian Thomas is getting involved. And now you've got the run game going in a game that we thought, hey, we might not see too much of it because Arkansas's rush D is good. I think you saw a lot in this. You learned a lot in this game, I'll say that, from the offense, but also from the defense. They had 4 sacks coming from all over the place. There wasn't just one guy like wreaking havoc. It was Greg Penn, Harold Perkins, Deshaun Womack, Mekhi Wingo, Andre Sam, Whit Weeks. Everybody kind of got a little piece of the pie there, and then they had 2 interceptions from Andre Sam and Zy Alexander. You still need to see more from the defense. They were misreading some things or just not seeing certain plays the way that they should have seen it, specifically in pass coverage. But they were tested. And this was a big part of Kelly's presser today. And he kept hammering on a couple things, but this being one of them. The fight that we saw from the defense is promising. They need to focus on doing the little things right and doing their job. I know he said it's like they're trying to do too much. They're trying to chase plays to make plays that really aren't their plays to make. So, and it goes back to it being a lot of young guys, a lot of new guys still trying to feel out the chemistry and like the trust of letting your teammate do their job. You do your job, focus on the little things, you do the little things right, and everything will come across the board. They've been working on that. He said that's something they're going to continue to work on. But, I mean, he came back to what I've been saying. You like to see the fight that the defense specifically showed when they were tested. And that's not something you've necessarily seen because remember in week 1, we were all astonished at the fact that it looked like LSU just laid down and then got bullied in the second half. So to see 3 weeks later after 2 big wins that really didn't test what they were capable of, they were able to come out and fix things from week 1 and say, hey, yeah, we know we're down. We know there are things we need to fix. We're going to fight through this. We're going to come out on top. And they did just that. So self-inflicted wounds, of course, things to fix still, but a good little test that fell in LSU's favor and makes me feel better about moving forward because, again, it's nice to win by a lot, but now we know that down the road when we're tested and when there's a hard matchup and when you're down, they are capable of coming back and fixing things in real time. You look like you have a lot to say. I know you have a lot to say, so go ahead with your game analysis, Joe.
I actually didn't have a lot to say.
I can. Wow. I know you can. You can. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, so one, I think LSU, I think it's very promising to see how they were able to bounce back, the adjustments they were able to make, and then take control of the game again. Defense played well at the goal line, especially late in the game. But I don't want to I've seen a lot of people over the weekend, specifically last week, talking about how Arkansas lost to BYU, and then after the game saying LSU is not as good as we expected. We literally dropped in the polls. I think Arkansas is a better team than they're getting credit for. I think they're right there in the mix with LSU, went right down to the wire, obviously. But I think with what we saw out of Ole Miss and Alabama, neither one of them really looked great in that game. Alabama ended up winning, but neither team looked elite. Texas A&M's another team. They got a big win over Auburn. So I think Arkansas is right there in the mix with 4 or 5 teams in the SEC West, and LSU got an impressive win.
It kind of aggravates me sometimes when we come out and we're like, oh, we're not as good as we thought, or, oh, this team, like, give them credit. 1, it's early in the season. You can't make any assumptions right now. 2, this year specifically, I mean, it's all over the place. You're seeing upsets and just teams that you thought were great aren't being as great, or teams that you didn't give enough credit are coming out on top. Like, it's early. Let's not, like, give credit where it's due. Take a look at Arkansas because they're not a bad team. I think you're right. They're right there in the mix, and it can go either way. So this doesn't make LSU any less good. That's not a term, but that's what I'm going to say. It doesn't make them worse. That's the word I was looking for. Go. It doesn't make them worse, and I don't think it makes Arkansas better. I think people aren't looking at it like in the big picture thing, kind of, you know what I mean? In the grand scheme of college football right now, I think you didn't give Arkansas enough credit.
Yeah, I think a lot of LSU fans, and this isn't a shot at LSU fans by any means, but I think a lot of LSU fans neglect to look at the scope of college football, and they're just very LSU-centric, which is okay if you're an LSU fan. But when you do that, you miss out on what the rest of the field is doing and how Arkansas matched up against even BYU, and that was a rough loss, but how they matched up against BYU, how they matched up against LSU, and what they'll do the remainder of the year. Like I think there's some foreshadowing to how their game with A&M or Auburn or Ole Miss or Bama could go. And I think some of them are going to go very similarly to how they did Saturday against LSU.
Yeah. And look, LSU's got Ole Miss next weekend. I thought Ole Miss might upset Bama. They didn't. But that's not a team to be taken lightly either. I think it came at good timing to be able to see the fight from LSU this week as we're about to go face Ole Miss and Mizzou and Florida the next week, or Auburn? It's Florida, I think. Yeah. Tough little lineup here on the road too for the next 2 weeks. So being able to exemplify the perseverance, the resiliency, hey, we can fight back, is perfect timing going into this week.
And for those fans that are very LSU-centric and could expect LSU Ole Miss to be a good game, I do expect it to be a good game. Mm-hmm. But if you're not up to date on how good Missouri has been playing this year, you should expect that one to be a good game too.
I told somebody that yesterday. I don't remember who it was, but they were talking about the schedule, and they kind of skipped over Missouri, and I was like, maybe don't do that. That's another game that looks like it's not one of the big, games that as a fan you look forward to if you're out there tailgating, but that's going to probably be a good game that you shouldn't overlook. We'll preview the Ole Miss game on Friday. Again, as we do every Friday, we'll have Bryce Kuhn back in here. He's going to keep joining us to look at that game and the X's and O's of it. But we won't get ahead of ourselves. We'll take the win. Like I said, not very pretty, but a win is a win.